From day one, MGTOW was about intellectual honesty and a commitment to the truth. MGTOW wanted to look deeper than the MRM so as to avoid their mistakes. The goal was to help men navigate a deeply misandric society. However, from day one, the MGTOW label has been also highly problematic. Anyone can say that they're going their own way. The term MGTOW is loaded and othering because it implies that everyone outside of MGTOW is some sort of follower. It also fails to explain what it is that men are walking away from. Part of the failure of the MRM was due to male complacency. Most men see any form of activism on behalf of men as unmasculine. The MRM also tried pandering to women in the false belief that women as a whole had genuine concerns for male issues. Unlike the MRM, I think a lot of men got into MGTOW out of sheer idle curiosity. They themselves were not interested in actually doing anything to help other men or to change society. Many came to MGTOW disillusioned with PUA. Unfortunately, a lot of men were not really interested in challenging their core assumptions, nor introspecting. Even more were certainly not interested in advancing knowledge, or even helping themselves. To this day, many are not even interested in new information, let alone discovering and sharing new information. Is MGTOW just men doing whatever they want? If it is not a movement, then what is it? If it is a phenomenon born out of particular conditions, then why are the same ideas rehashed over and over again, and why is there so much infighting? There have been bachelors and men who have written about women throughout history. What is it that makes men who don't marry in this age different? If MGTOW can be married, as MRAs and traditionalists have asserted, what is MGTOW a phenomenon of? If MGTOWs cannot even agree on their basic principles, what is even the point of labeling themselves as such? If it is just a bunch of men complaining online about women, then it's nothing at all. Men have been complaining about women to other men since our ancestors developed speech. All the internet has allowed men to do is to have a larger audience and to gather a larger amount of information. Barbarossa did a video comparing MGTOW men to moles burrowing through the ground searching for the truth about female nature. The problem is there are plenty of men that do not apply the knowledge to themselves. As Stardust has asserted, this so-called red pill knowledge is nothing new. Romantic love is a recent invention of the Industrial Revolution. Throughout most of history, men and women understood and knew of each other because their very lives depended on it. They could not afford delusions of lifelong marital bliss because life was harsh and cheap. An even greater problem is that most of the new videos are not discovering anything new, but rather rebranding traditionalist ideas that have no basis in science whatsoever. Some channels fully acknowledge female nature, but argue for some sort of male slavery in the name of alpha males or some right-wing social Darwinist ideology. If MGTOW is not about helping the majority of men, then there's no point to it existing whatsoever. The truth is, MGTOW has become an internet shit show of monetized shit-stirring response videos and self-promotion. Essentially, what you have is a bunch of men who don't get along, all defining MGTOW in any way they want and using the MGTOW label to peddle their ideological garbage. And a large number of them don't even want to get along, let alone collaborate with other men on some abstract principle of being individuals. A huge contingent of men are not even trying to understand anything at all, but rather log in and click for the online drama updates. MGTOW, it seems, has just become mindless entertainment. In general, there seems to be two camps. Everyone talks about what MGTOW should be, but the bottom line is what separated MGTOW from the MRM from day one was a desire to walk away from a society toxic to men, and to dig deeper to understand the male condition. They wanted to understand how men got to this point in the first place. MGTOW saw the bias in everywhere, from the sciences to media and the government. They wanted to explore misandry in every aspect and relook history through fresh eyes. The point was to dig as deep as possible and to get to the basic, untainted facts, no matter how horrible the implications. They wanted to be as objective and scientific as possible so that men could have access to accurate information. The other camp refused to take a look at the world with fresh eyes. Instead of trying to understand the relationship between the sexes, they continued to focus on feminism as some sort of monolithic and all-powerful force, intent on destroying society and the relationship between the sexes until society implodes and we return to a normal state. Even worse are the idiots that think feminism was a tool used by an even more mysterious and hidden cabal of conspirators bent on global domination. They proselytize their inaction on the grounds of collectivism as the enemy itself. Once society collapses, the conspiracy will be exposed once and for all, and we will all be able to return to the glorious ways of life before central banking and the Jews, or something. Their shallow understanding of the human condition has made fatalism, complacency, and reaction their hill to die on. To them, MGTOW is some ethereal non-entity of men doing whatever they want and flaunting social conventions, and being politically incorrect in an age of political correctness. A true MGTOW is free to live life in his own terms, unless of course it involves doing something to help men, or somehow vaguely not being right-wing enough. They want to keep MGTOW undefined, and yet when someone makes a video they don't like, they will accuse them of being leftists, collectivists, and cultural Marxists. When they do retort videos, they don't even want to define their own terms. It ends up just being anti-cultural Marxist word salad sprinkled with one-upsmanship. To top it all off, not only do they not want to do anything, but they actively attack those that engage in any sort of activism. Almost everyone in this category is on the far-right, traditional conservative spectrum, but they will not admit it. Somehow talking about cultural Marxism will make cultural Marxism disappear. Somehow free market capitalism will solve all of men's problems. In particular, many men on the right seem more interested in controlling the tone of the debate than discovering new information. Rather than criticize new ideas on their own merit, they will label anything that doesn't snugly fit into their worldview as leftist. They associate the left wing with weakness and femininity. It reinforces their masculine identity, which is based around being productive, climbing social dominance hierarchies, and receiving recognition from other people. They see collectivism in everything except their own ideas, which require a massive amount of collectivism, just without direct state interference. Never forget that industrialism and the centralized state allowed for the dissolution of traditional agrarian collectivism. Their fatalism and complacency fundamentally stem from their worldview. In their mind, there's somehow a natural order arising out of biological differences between men and women, and a natural law that is supposed to support that. Anything that deviates from that is somehow a foreign, inorganic idea foisted on society by either force or fraud. Right-wingers are obsessed with morality while having absolutely no concept of material life. They seem to think that ideas alone can change society and are very fatalistic. They see society as a static entity and a naturally occurring phenomenon. They can't see that societies formed under certain conditions of material wealth and took centuries to form. Such right-wingers see themselves as displaced alphas who have been wrongfully dethroned by some government driven by a conspiratorial agenda. They despise a victim culture as enabling weak people from abandoning their personal responsibility. They want society to be more socially Darwinistic and competitive because somehow they are being oppressed by a leftist system that caters to the weak. Yet I must ask, if they are so strong and independent, how could a system that caters to the weak oppress them in the first place? Most people adopt a worldview that suits their temperament. Extreme right-wingers tend to be very type A. Their entire identity is based around usefulness, productivity, and order. They fear change and chaos. The problem is they just can't be useful to themselves. They need to be recognized for their so-called achievements, in particular by women. They see the government as competition for women. What the traditionalists can't understand is that women chose the government as a provider over men. Women were not tricked by feminism. They knew what they were doing. The reason why MGTOW has been infiltrated by right-wing types is that their own movements are useless as fuck. There are left-wing movements full of dysfunction. Nonetheless, they try to accomplish something and actually do things in the public eye to bring attention to their cause and ideas. The biggest reason far right-wing movements have failed is that they see any sort of consensus or group action as collectivism. For such reasons, such fringe right-wingers never accomplish anything in the real world. All they can do is point their finger at conspiracies and keep a small base entertained within a niche of fringe politics. Occasionally they may stockpile weapons and hide out in a bunker until the government comes to get them, but rarely do they influence the mainstream. All they can really do is cannibalize other movements and political parties. To be sure, cannibalization on the left by radicals occurs, but radicals on the left themselves have a sense of action and are usually the ones driving the less radical elements to take action. It's hardly surprising that MGTOW attracts so many men from right-wing fringe movements. It's a refuge for men that complain, but that don't want to do anything or even do any critical thinking. MGTOW has become a place for disaffected men to complain about their lives and the status quo, while repeating the same worn-out mantras and platitudes. MGTOW has already passed the tipping point of right-wing infiltration. Many men who would be politically in the center or towards the left are turned away from MGTOW because of this. The biggest problem in MGTOW is dishonesty. It's part and parcel of a phenomenon centered around the internet. If there are MGTOW that think that being MGTOW is about being right-wing, they need to come out and say it. They need to define their terms and be specific. You cannot say MGTOW cannot be defined and then criticize MGTOW for being left-wing. If MGTOW cannot be defined, then who the fuck are you to say that it cannot be left-wing? The only way to change this is to constantly call out right-wingers in our ranks when we see them. We have to let men know that they cannot hijack MGTOW for their own political agenda. If I am wrong, I want to hear an alternative definition of MGTOW. I want my ideas criticized on their own merits. I want clarification. If MGTOW is to continue growing, it has to be pro-something. It's not enough for it to be anti-feminism or anti-government. At the very least, it has to be pro-male. At this point, I think it would be better to stop advancing the MGTOW label altogether. Labels are limiting. We don't have to renounce the label, but it is better to share pro-male ideas without the banner of MGTOW. The label MGTOW is a self-segregating and self-marginalizing label. I would rather spread my ideas to ordinary men and have them judge my ideas on their own merit than try in futile to establish some echo chamber and engage in factional disputes. Labels are not going to help men. What men need is critical information to guide them in the right direction. Men are going to have to evolve and redefine themselves for themselves, or they will be made obsolete by a society that does not give a shit about them. Archaic political theories that have been around for hundreds of years are certainly not going to help them. It is only through genuine understanding that men will be able to liberate themselves, for themselves, by themselves.